Call me a hag, and I'll thank you. Join me today and two younger hags on Transformation Decoded as we explore the misappropriation of the word old woman. Stick with us. Welcome, everyone. This is Isabel Banerjee, 66 years old today, and one of the three founding old hags of Transformation Decoded. For about the past 6 months, my cohorts, Lee Woodward and Jackie Ulmer, who are my mastermind partners, my absolutely tell me the truth and celebrate great events and milestones in my life partners, and also contributors to a book that I wrote and published 1 year ago now called Who Am I Now? Feminine Wisdom, Unmasked and Uncensored. So partly because of that book and partly because of the mastermind experience that we shared, we've really come to talk about some things that are important, relevant, sensitive, thought-provoking, ass-kicking, just waking it all up. And weekly, we come together for you and ourselves, but for you to share what we are thinking about and what we are learning because we are transformation mavens. We are constantly evolving as women. We're digging down deep. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable, the places that we are excavating, and we are re-examining some paradigms, some societal programs that we grew up with, each from different decades, but we've grown up with, and why those don't really feel relevant and right to us today. The impetus for today's particular conversation, besides my 66th birthday, oh my God, I can't let it go at 65, which was 65 was one heck of a year. And I'm going to be posting a blog today about that. So if you're thinking you're afraid of 65, please read that blog on isabelbanerjee.com because I'm going to give you some tips on how to get on and ride. So just in the last couple of days, I was exposed on Facebook, I think, to a spoken word poet, a young woman. It was posted by BBC Social, and I'm going to include that link with our show notes so that you can watch it in its entirety for yourself. But this beautifully articulate, wise young woman whose name is Sarah McGilvery has an exquisite piece called Call Me a Hag, and I'll thank you. And it talks about how, as society, we've put this label on women that when they reach postmenopausal or perimenopausal in some cases, that we become almost even worse than redundant, but maybe surplus, discarded, inconvenient, expensive members of society. And I thought, like, what the hell is this all about? Because I certainly do not feel like I am any of those descriptors. And so I looked into the origin of the word hag. And, there's, some differences with the scholars, but, the word hag appeared somewhere around the 13th century and became more common in vernacular after the 16th century. But basically, it was a way to put the maturing part of the feminist society, the matriarchs, in a place of submission in society. like you're done, you're used up, you are of no value because you cannot give birth to more waifs to work in the fields or serve in the kitchens. All right. And I think, without getting, too passionate or political about it, I think there was also was like sort of an impetus around being a little afraid of women who were confident and wise and experienced in life and wanting to put them in a contained space by, shall we say, doing some false advertising or some marketing with some negative connotations, right? So we all know how that works today in social media, how you can paint a picture to misconstrue what someone's all about and how that goes. So I want to talk today with my compadres, my hags, my homie hags, about what does that mean for us, for individually, for us, about how do you feel about being a mature woman? How do you feel that you are perceived in your circles and in society? And what are the labels that you think are wrong and that we can all change? So, and I've got some background material, some research I want to share with you, but first I would like to start off with Jackie. Would you introduce yourself and explain to our listeners really where you see yourself in that label?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Isabel, and happy birthday, of course. Um, I'm Jackie Almer, creator of the Street Smart Wealth Academy and one of the co-founders here of Transformation Decoded. And I have to tell you, that word uh, strikes me. I don't like the word. I have immediate resistance to it. Um, and I think it comes down to a lot of different things for me, most of which really are humorous. I mean, they're called sky hags, flight attendants. I'm from the airline industry. I wasn't really a
I
flight
didn't
attendant
know
much,
that.
but
I didn't
yeah,
know
so they're
that.
called sky hags, galley hags. That kind of is part of the airline world. And it's mostly meant more of as a funny phrase. Like I haven't ever heard it in a really detrimental, it's kind of been a joke
Mm,
kind of thing. Um, but the word itself I don't know, it just really conjures up a lot of negativity, and it's funny because 'cause
mm.
I'm totally into Halloween. I should have worn my witch's hat, honestly.
Yes, you
I have
should
2
have.
great ones. Uh, I have a whole costume box because I love Halloween so much. But that word, when we first started talking about using that word and all that goes along with it for this, I really had a resistance to it, and I really did enjoy the video clip that this is based around. So I know it'll be in the show notes, so make sure that you go and watch that so you
Yeah.
know kind of where this came from. But I decided in the way that I do to turn it into an acronym and make it more palatable for me. So I decided on happy, authentic, and gorgeous because I feel like those are so important. And really, I prefer the word peace over happy because life is 50-50, and you can be happy when you wake up in the morning and have something happen that makes you unhappy during the day. But at the end of the day, hopefully you have peace and know that this too shall pass. But that's what I came up with. And then, of course, gorgeous. We so often I very seldom hear anybody refer to an aging man from Hollywood, for instance, as looking great for his age. Occasionally you
Right.
do. But we do that with women, and even I do. I've shared with both of you that I recently started watching Grace and Frankie. I think I have the order right, with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. And I immediately had to go Google how old they were because I was curious because they both are absolutely stunning in this show. They're stunning anyway, but they're so stunning in the show. And I find myself, like getting close to the TV. Well, then my daughter Lexi, I was just with her in Nashville and we watched the movie The Big Wedding, which has Susan Sarandon and Diane Keaton. And I immediately went and did the same thing. I didn't pay any attention to how old Robert De Niro is in the movie. I wasn't interested. I don't know how old he is today, but I was quite curious to see their age because again, I felt like they just looked absolutely stunning. And, so of course for myself, I'm thinking, how old are they and what's their secret and what do I need to focus on? So I looked that great at that age. So it is interesting, even our own personal bias over things that we are frustrated that there's a bias around. I find myself even having it and then reflecting on that and asking myself, why? Why am I interested in their age? Because of course, my immediate thought was my own age and what can I do to hold on to certain aspects of youth? We want our brain and our wisdom and all of that to grow and expand and be a wealth of the decade. We just don't want to wear it on our face so often. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm interested to see where we go with this.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so Lee, this just dovetails right into what you are working on and now as you are transforming your business and how you are bringing value to the world. And that, dovetailing off of what Jackie's saying, what does the word nag conjure up for you? I mean, hag. Well, there's an interesting
Right.
hag,
Is that a Freudian
hag.
slip?
Well, yes, because there's another way that we are labeled often as women, right? Oh, the old bag, the nag, the ball and chain, the hag. All right. So Lee, give us your deep, deep, deep thoughts.
Oh yeah, so deep. So I was looking at Jackie, and I think so I'll just give you all hope. So my daughter, who's about 21,
Yeah.
George Clooney came up, and something about like he's really good looking, and she was like, "Mom, he is so old. He is not good looking." So there we go. We have one young woman placed holding men to the same standard. So there we go. So
Fair,
uh,
fair enough. Fair enough.
I know,
Ah,
cracked me up. And I think, aging comes with this negativity, and what I loved that. So I agree, you should go listen to the spoken word, video that you're going to put on there because so much of the negativity there's this negative image of aging, and she speaks to this was about keeping wisdom down and the power of women and
right.
knowledge and all this. And that what's layered on top of it is this berating of our physical appearance and our
Yep.
physical body, so that something that's just happens, it just becomes this, you can't escape it. I mean, it's just one of those things. So I think women have our physical appearance weaponized against us so often. And I think it's this double whammy approach. You take a word, you attach the stuff around it, you say, and on top of it, as soon as you start to get the wrinkles and the gray hair and this, that's just proof that all this has happened because somehow, you know, good, smart, in control women, don't have wrinkles or something along those lines. But so I think it's just so for me, it's about how do we disconnect that and really allow women to claim their beauty and have that come from the inside out.
Yeah. Like how deeply ingrained is this in our society that we have attached value to physical appearance? Not it's not what we are doing for others or what we are capable of or know or have done. It's about in these circumstances we're saying we have no value as women if we do not conform to the societal catalog of beauty, right? And beauty is such a deep and complex topic. And Lee, I know you are studying that and coming up with some solutions to that. And I know we have to have many, many more conversations around that because it's ingrained in me. I grew up with it. It was from the day I was born, pretty baby, pretty little girl, right through to now in my 60s. I'm still playing the tape in my head. So if I don't change that and we don't change it generationally in reverse, we're stuck with it, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
mean, I was going to say on that. I mean, I think one of the interesting things to me is that, one of the things I say is like, especially with beauty, it's almost like for women that whatever we're individually not is what beauty is, because we have the flip of it. And I was mentioning, but it's like the same thing. A really attractive woman, we question her competence. We question whether or not she got the job because she was good at what she did. And so it's like, damn, if you're too attractive, you're, and if you're, not attractive enough, well, then, whatever, there's something else lacking there. So I think a lot of times, when it comes to that physical appearance, women oftentimes are kind of in a no-win situation because it's made about this versus all that other stuff you mentioned, whether it's because you're super, textbook attractive or not.
Well, and I think it's good to have those strong, which are challenging sometimes too, but those strong female companions and good friendships where you can begin to open some of that up and share, things that have gone on from childhood on where uh, those insecurities start. And almost everyone has the insecurities. I don't care if you were the homecoming queen or, you know, voted this or not voted at all or whatever. Almost everyone has insecurities. There's still something outside of themselves that they see in another that, just like you say, Lee, they hold up as that standard of what is beauty. And
yeah,
that's where I really do think that, that inner work, the work that you can do on yourself to develop belief in yourself, acceptance and love of yourself, that then translates into confidence. And confidence is sexy. It's appealing. It's beautiful. It really truly is. And all of us know those situations where, let's take a female, we know that woman who has the it factor,
right.
not the ick factor, the it factor. And you look at her and you think, okay, she's cute, but she's not like drop dead gorgeous. And she's got a decent body, but it's not like, Playboy cover material. I mean, you can look at that and really most of the time what it comes down to is that personality and that confidence and exuding that inner belief, if you will. I don't know.
Totally. And I don't know why I went there, but because I did. Okay, so do you remember Star Trek, the TV series?
Vaguely.
And they were, going off to all these alien planets and they were landing, and there were always these outrageously different um, alien creatures. And the guys on the Star Trek crew were falling in love with these creatures who absolutely bore no resemblance to the human standards of beauty and attractiveness. But because I don't know, maybe in space those things are blown away, or maybe it's because they exuded that confidence and that attraction. And that fascinated me as a younger person, that wow, beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder. And what I'm attracted to, it shouldn't be, it doesn't have to be anything that anybody else is attracted to, and that individual thing there. But I'd like to take us back just a minute to the Hag label, because that's what inspired this conversation today. And that whole, like, whoa, think about that as women are aging in our society, not only in Scotland, where this young woman is from, but all around the world, I think there is a predominance to that. Once you get to a certain age as a woman, you as I said, you start to be less valued and minimized in your contribution. And that reminded me of something that my son shared with me, quite some time ago, probably a couple of years ago. So my son is part Ojibwe Indian heritage, Native American heritage. And he was sharing with me this young man who is teaching original Ojibwe word of the day videos. And my son had sent me this particular one, and he said, "Mom, this makes me think about you." And so I watched it. So the word of the day that this young man, and I'll put this in the show notes as well. The word of the day, and this is from the Ojibwe language, is, and I may not pronounce this perfectly, but Mindemouye. Mindemouye, which in English in simple terms translates to old woman. And in the Ojibwe culture, they typically look at everything in life cycles of four cycles. So talking in the evolution of a woman in her life, in that culture, there are four cycles. And the first one starts as the infant or the baby, and there is a specific name for that. And the second one is the child or the girl, and that's a stage of your life, and they have a separate word for that as well. And the third stage of a woman's life is the reproductive stage. Okay, this is the stage of life where you give life. And each of the stages are highly valued for their contribution to the culture and the clan and the tribe. But certainly they place great importance on the power of femininity and the power to procreate and continue the clan and to create life and to bring new life into the world. The fourth stage, so it's the last stage in life, is known as Mindemouye, and literally translated, dissected, that means roughly holding us together. And it symbolizes, it signifies that the woman at this stage of her life is holding the wisdom of the tribe. She is the matriarch. She is holding the clan together. And she has a very significant importance to the tribe and to the family. And in fact, the culture, there is a significance of passing into the menopausal stage, which then frees up more capacity as a woman to be a leader, to be the person that holds it all together and passes on traditions and knowledge and solves problems. So that word, translated otherwise to old hag, is not dismissive. It is not disrespectful. It, in fact, is full of respect for a woman at that time in her life and the value that she is to her society. And I just thought, wow, like how differently if you shift the perspective of what the same word, translated roughly, is to one society, how that is. So I just, that got me to thinking about, how do we all feel about our grandmothers, right? Weren't they the women that they knew stuff and they held the extended and the clan family together, right? They passed on the recipes and the traditions and the family history and stuff. And now because we've become a more nomadic, portable, fractured society, how we've lost a lot of that tradition. For me, it was a big part of my growing up to go to my grandmother's on the weekends and have big dinners and overhear people's conversations. And I really learned a lot about life from those family dinners. So, Jackie, I mean, what do you think about that positioning of an old hag?
Well, I certainly love it from that perspective, especially as I'm just recently became a grandmother. And thinking about that, thinking about the role I want to play as the grandmother, thinking about the legacy that I want to leave, and just even thinking about like I loved what you even shared about that the phase of childbearing and bringing new life into the world, and I think about that a lot. It's one of the ways that I find um, appreciation and acceptance of my changing body too, and just practicing gratitude of, wow, thank you for carrying two healthy babies who've now gone off into the world and are doing great things. And thank you to my legs and feet for walking me millions of miles in my life and allowing me to hike and do all that stuff. But, so bringing all that together and thinking of
Mhm.
what this body and this mind and everything have done to get me here, and with my own family, and now continuing that, like, so how do I want to perpetuate that? What relationship do I want to have with my grandchildren? What do I want them to say about me? How do I want them to feel about me? And ultimately, those are a lot of the things I believe that determine how the next generation views aging and
Right.
views that whole scenario when they have a when their own life situation it is steeped in appreciating that and wanting to be around uh, those, their grandparents and the elders, if you will. So I think that's an important part of it. And that's up to us. That's up to us
Mhm.
to begin to define that and maybe begin to shift that cultural thinking that I don't want to say it's just American and not just North American. Is it also in Canada? Um, you know, there are certainly other cultures where that's not so much the case. So it's interesting. But yeah, I love embracing that role of being that elder, wiser glue that passes on the gifts of the family and the recipes.
And the recipes. So Lee, because beauty, physicality, confidence is a big part of your world, and not just to keep you in that vein, but and what are your thoughts about? Does old just mean wise, or can old also be beautiful, vibrant, sensual, anything the individual wants it to be?
Yeah, I mean, two things. I mean, being having a lot of vitality. I mean, one, I just think of the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, she was serving on the Supreme Court and serving, 93, I think. And so age should not be the determinant of when, are we done contributing to society. But you brought it up. I mean, my grandmother was such an important person in my life. And my daughter is named after my grandmother. I always knew if I had a daughter, she'd be named Margaret. And I love because she goes by Margaret. So she hasn't shortened it or anything. She goes by that kind of old-fashioned name at this point. But, I have so many stories about
Mhm.
my grandmother that I just love. And she was born in 1900, and she too passed away at 93. And so one of the things that she would do is we would sit and she would kind of just and then a certain story happened, which for another time, it's amazing. And I was like, holy crap, like I need to learn more about my grandma's life. And that's when, she told me about, I mean, she grew up in covered wagons and you would heat the bricks and put them in the wash bins in the back of the wagon to go in, on Friday night for the town little barn dance. And, I mean, it's just like,
Wow.
so you just it was
Whoa.
amazing kind of hear these stories and just her life and how it was and some things that she lived through. And my grandma was nobody's fool. And she was one of the most loving, fiercely loving people. Uh, not a, just so open minded, especially when you think of kind of that age frame. But I remember one thing that cracks me up about her was one of the things she said. And, and I always kind of remember my grandma old. She was 70 when I was born. So I never like my parents are so young for my kid. My grandma was always kind of old. I mean, just that. But so I kind of assumed she was past her looks, and she grew up on a farm. She was never a super fancy woman that way. But she asked me one time, she said, when it was something special she was going to, she said, "Can you please get me a Dickie?" And I'm like, "What are you asking, you poor grandmother?" So, but 17-year-old me going, "What the hell?" No. And a Dickie, which I learned, are the little fake
Yeah,
colors, like the
of
little,
course.
like, and so it just comes down. So I learned all about Dickies, but I went on pursuit because my grandma wanted these Dickies. And I was like, why do you want this? And she's like, I don't like my neck. And I remember it was just so interesting. It made me realize that, like, we all want to, and we never grow out of wanting to look in the mirror and like what we see. And I think probably accepting, like Jackie, like you said, how those changes happen, but she would have preferred to not see the skin right down here. And it surprised me a little bit because she never came across. And it just made her more human to me. And that she was willing to share that with me. And so I think, that that's one of my favorite grandma stories, and saying, that even and by that age, she probably was 87. She wanted to look nice when she went out to that event, and she wanted to feel good about what she saw. So, and that to me is it's a beautiful thing to always want that for yourself. And so that was cool.
That was the takeaway or the impression that I got. It was that she made that decision because she wanted to
Yeah.
look good for herself. That
Yep.
it wasn't because she was concerned for what anyone else expected her to do, which is where I would like to be in my life too, and where I think all women would like to be ultimately, is that I don't give a rat's ass what you say or Instagram says or Vogue says or whatever the influencer of the month says. I want to look the way that makes me feel best and makes me alive and excited, and be able to look in that reflection in the mirror ourselves and go, "Hello, gorgeous."
Yeah.
That's what it should be about, I think. Jackie, I see some sparks flying there in your eyes.
No, just totally agreeing. It's kind of funny. I don't remember how long ago it was that I heard this, but it was sometime, and I'm pretty sure it was Jamie Lee Curtis who said you should never wear sleeveless tops after 40. And I still think about that all the time. It's like, well, I better flex my muscle then. Just funny little things where I sometimes I'll do a little check and go, should I be wearing this? And it's so funny. I would love to hear her take on it now, of all people.
Really?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to Google that to be sure. And if I'm incorrect, make sure that it's in the show notes. But
Let's interview her.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just funny stuff, and that just goes back to, comments people make, things people say, and, all of that. And ultimately it does come down to feeling good about yourself and doing it for yourself.
Mhm.
And if you're doing it for yourself and still want to put it out there for the world, that's not bad either. There's no shame, if you will, or bow for wanting to look your best out in the world. It's kind of almost a form of self-respect. And that doesn't mean that it's not self-respect if you go, oh, whatever, I don't care. This is who I am, this is how I am, and this is how I'm
My
going.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's acceptance of ourselves, but also that grace and acceptance of other people and what they choose to do.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to challenge this conversation. and it's saying, okay, but by what standards? Because if we are, measuring ourselves against a standard that is unrealistic, unattainable, motivated by somebody trying to sell something, then I disagree with that. But if we are motivated, if we are making those choices to wear makeup, not wear makeup, dye our hair, not dye our hair, uh, whatever, because I like what I see and I feel like me, and that's a good thing, then yes, I believe that. Well, we've been fighting back. We're coming back from a couple of decades of overt programming as consumers. Uh, don't eat butter. Avocados are too fattening. Diet everything. 100 calories in a pack will keep you healthy and fit. Wrong. So rethinking those metrics now is what I also think is may I'm voting for this may redefine the interpretation of hag. I want to go with Jackie's version of hag, HAG.
Happy, authentic, and gorgeous.
Happy, authentic, and gorgeous, which is the awesome thing. All right, so I am just like this is spot on for where I am because I'm going through. I consider my birthday as the start of my new year, and each year is just like, wow, I grew again. And as you know, or for those of you who are listening have read the book, Who Am I Now? My life is based on an education I call QBE, Qualified by Experience. And this whole conversation is just adding to my education and my knowledge and confidence around that because it's like I am blessed to have a long life. And if you want to call me a hag or label me as whatever, that's your choice. But I'm excited by the fact that I'm continuing my education as a woman and getting stronger and more smarter and more confident and capable of helping more people as I grow and get older. And I love the fact that as the Mindemouye, there's also, by the way, in the native the spiritual stories, the connection that the very first Mindemouye, when she passed off the earth, she went on to become the woman in the moon.
Oh, nice.
And there, as that responsibility, she is responsible for the lunar cycles and the biological cycles of all women. So we are supported by our connection, which I thought was just a fascinating idea to think about. There again, we as women are wise contributors, and we have a great value about the entire cycle of life. So, what else might you think about how uh, Aminda Moyer, a hag, has impacted your life? And I'll start with you this time, Lee. We've heard a little about your grandmother, who that seems like a cool lady we need to know more about, wagon train and all. But what other matriarch or women leader? And you mentioned Ruth Bader Ginsburg. By the way, she was 87 when she passed last Friday. However, I think that woman lived multiple lifetimes in terms of her impact and her legacy that will continue. Anyone else come to your mind besides
Yeah.
Grace and Frankie?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because when I left my traditional corporate job to pursue other interests and do some different things and do the entrepreneurial thing. I landed in Isabel, how you and I met was program, something you ran called Grow Your Biz.
Yeah.
And I really, when I look at my friends, a lot of them are easily 10 to 15 years older than me. I
Yeah.
mean, one of my very bestie friends, who is one of your very good friends, 70? Gonna be 70 this year. I
I
mean,
think she's already. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I mean, we say it all the time. We are absolute soulmates. And I think for me, we have soulmate connections I believe, throughout your life. And some of them can last mere seconds. And that can be things that can just be soul impacting someone you met. And some of them are dogs and some of them are. But so I think the risk of having these when people are valuable is, man, you miss this opportunity to have these soulmate connections with people who really, can play such a pivotal role. So, and Gina's somebody in my life that woman makes me laugh, cry. I know that we don't have to see each other for, many months at a time, which unfortunately is where we've been at right now. And we will pick up like we saw each other the day before. And so for me, and I was actually commenting to my husband about that, about my friends, the age demographic of my friends that, I've aged up is what and I'm so blessed for that. And it's just such a different set of experiences and laughs and
Wait, when you said you aged up, I had a visual in my mind about you were reaching up and you were being pulled up into the collective wisdom of the female tribe. And we haven't discussed this before, but Lee and I, we had a creative expedition for a while with a business concept called Squatch Girl. And that was based around, the wild woman in us, the wise and wild connected to art and nature and wisdom, meeting around the fire and connecting as a tribe, right? And so that I just feel like Squatch Girl is here with us today.
yep, yep. So I'm
Yeah,
surrounded by hags and I love it. My life is better for it.
me too. Me too. In fact, another friend of ours, Jackie Wazalik, we're cooking up something called Wisdom Witches because that's it. We're just continually accumulating this life knowledge that, damn it, some of it was very, very hard earned. So why wouldn't we want to share that with others and save them some of the discomfort of acquiring that knowledge and confidence? Jackie, examples of other matriarchs or hags that have impacted your life, and it can be good or bad, whatever.
No, mostly good. I'm much like Lee in that I always have had all through my life, I've had someone or someone's a group of women who were typically anywhere from 10 to 15 years older than me that were mentors and good friends,
Yep.
great friends. I traveled with them, drank wine with them, cried with them, laughed with them, learned with them, loved with them, so many different things. I've always been so grateful for that. Because it has taught me so much. It has taught me so much. And I think subconsciously, even I'm always seeking that. So, moving, I've moved a number of times, to new cities, being from the airline industry and that kind of thing. We've relocated. And I think even subconsciously, I always sought that out somehow, some way. I always found that group. And that's been invaluable. And I have no intention of stopping it. And yet at the same time, I'm enjoying being part of that. Now I have even one of my neighbors, her young daughter kind of has taken to me and, she uses me as a reference for jobs and stuff. She's in her second year in college and will call me about this and, just different things like that. Friended me on Facebook and Instagram, which I love because I kind of had, even with my children, I had a policy. my own policy. If they friend requested me, their friends, and I liked them, I would accept it, but I didn't
Yeah.
ever want to be the one that was just like, oh, I have to be friends with all my friends, my kids' friends kind of thing. And that was certainly more when they were in high school. As they've gotten a little older, there've been a few times I've made the request because we've spent time together, that kind of thing. But it's fun to be in that role too, of being the mentor, being the older, wiser hag, if you will, if I have to use that word.
And we have to change the
I know.
context in that,
Sure.
right? It's like I never used to want to say the word Brussels sprouts. Now I love it.
Roast them with some bacon and balsamic and
Right.
for
Little Parmesan
Exactly.
cheese, all that stuff. All right. Well, as in all topics that we have shared, and I think we're, north of 20 episodes now and not slowing down. We could talk for hours and never even get exhausted by what's possible. And I love that in throughout of this conversation, we've touched on some topics as well that we've had in previous issues, including the birthday suit one when we were helping Lee transition into a new decade. So I invite everybody to go back and look at our birthday suit episode as well. But so for today, I think we'll wrap up and leave you all with this thought about, are you ever too old to be a vital contributing woman? Do you have a clan of hags and nags that you ride with and learn with and love and laugh and support? And how do we change our own expectation, belief, perceptions around aging as a woman in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, hundreds, and beyond? And look back in history and in cultures that have been successful based on some very strong matriarchal principles, and how do we share those with all of the generations of women around us, our daughters, our granddaughters, our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues, and go forward. So, parting words, either one of you, before we sign off?
I would say you're only too old if you choose to be.
Oh, totally. I agree. I agree. All right. So thank you, everyone, for being with us today. I would say if you liked this, if you're interested in learning more about what makes us tick as hags and as mastermind partners and entrepreneurs and troublemakers, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Transformation Decoded, and do the thing with the little bell so you get the notifications and you know when we posted a new episode. And as a extra support to you, go check into our Facebook page, Transformation Decoded. Uh, Join us there, and gosh knows what surprises we may share with you, but also we'll try to keep you up to date on what's going on in our brains. And more important, if you are a Mindamouye, a hag, a nag, or just one hell of a bitchin' woman, and you know that friends of yours would benefit from what we talk about on Transformation Decoded, please share everything that you have about us. Thank you for now. See you soon.
Bye.
Happy birthday to me.
Bye. Yeah, happy birthday.
Bye-bye.